minute.
Yeah, it says that it is being live
It
streamed.
says webinar is being live streamed.
Yeah, but it's not happening there in real
Okay.
time.
No, it's I'll share the link. It's just integrating. Give me a moment.
Okay, 7:10 will start. Everyone, please. It's now 7:08. At 7:10 we'll start.
We're live. We're live. But is it showing there, Nick? Or no?
No.
Not yet, Kavi.
Okay, so there's another link. I'm just sharing that with you, Nick. You can just send that on the groups.
I can't
But
now,
we're
but I
live
don't know
on
who's
YouTube.
logging from where. I have no idea who's logged in from
Just
where.
put it on the same chats. Just put it on the same chats. I sent it to you on WhatsApp.
This is live?
Yeah.
Kavi sent to
Yeah,
me as well.
this is live. So your thing is wrong.
The older initial one that we had started is not somehow working. So I just started a new live.
Okay. Kavi, send me the
Mohit,
link.
I'm sending
I
it to
will
you as
paste.
well.
Yeah, I will
I'm
paste it
I'm
into the
sending it to you. You can just post it everywhere. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
I've just posted it also.
Send. Cool. I think we're good to go then, Nick.
Yeah, we're good to go.
Anyways, the
Shall I?
YouTube will be ready, like can be viewed later as well. So let's get started.
Yeah, we're ready to go. Shall I go?
We can start?
Yes, we can start.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Sorry for the wait. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our speaker for this evening, Dr. Aparajita Datta. Dr. Datta is one of India's most distinguished wildlife biologists and among the world's leading authorities on hornbills. For more than 3 decades, she has dedicated her career to understanding the ecology, the behavior, and worked towards the conservation of these extraordinary birds, particularly in the forests of Northeast India. Her pioneering research has revealed the vital role hornbills play in maintaining healthy forests through seed dispersal, and much of what we know today in India about hornbill ecology has been shaped by her work. As a senior scientist with the Nature Conservation Foundation, Dr. Datta combines rigorous scientific research with practical conservation on the ground. She works extensively with local communities to protect hornbill nesting sites and habitats, demonstrating how conservation will succeed when science views people and wildlife as partners and not competitors. Her remarkable work has deservedly earned national and international recognition, including the prestigious Whitley Award, often referred to as the Green Oscar. Yet beyond awards, she is deeply admired for her knowledge, her immense field experience, and her innate ability to inspire generations of students, conservationists, birders, and researchers. This evening's talk is especially relevant to all of us. Over the past few years, a single oriental pied hornbill has been seen in different parts of Delhi. A month ago, she appeared in Lodhi Garden and became a part of the incredible saga involving a nesting family of Indian grey hornbills. She became their Mausi Ma. What began as a chance observation has now grown into a fascinating urban wildlife story that has captivated the imagination of birders and non-birders alike. And there could be no better person to help us make sense of it all than Dr. Datta. Please join me in giving a very warm Delhi bird welcome to Dr. Aparajita Datta.
Thank you.
Over to you.
Okay. What is a Delhi bird welcome?
Oh.
Okay. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. I'm really happy to be talking here today. Actually, thanks to for the last couple of or whatever, some weeks, I have been also getting all the news about this drama that's unfolding in Lodhi Gardens. And everybody's sharing a lot of those updates with me. And It's actually affected my work because I've got so engaged and involved with that in the middle of a lot of other work that we have. But I'm happy to give this talk, but I just want a disclaimer that I'm not a expert. I'm really, really still learning about hornbills. There is so much to know. They reveal only little bits of their lives to us, So, yeah. So with that, I'll begin talking about them. Oops, wait. Yeah, this one. Yeah. So, hornbills, very often people tend to call them bizarre birds. I also did that at times, and I realized that it's quite a cliche to say that and don't say that anymore. But recently I discovered that, there's this old British, a book who has written this strange description of a hornbill. And I'll give you all a minute to sort of read it. And it's a most unkind sort of assessment of a hornbill. Um, he really says pretty nasty things about hornbills. And I don't know why he's, imputing such weird, calling them ugly, calling them amusing without intending to be, so it's a really strange description of how people saw hornbills way back in the past, maybe some people. And it seemed like he was talking about although it says rhinoceros hornbill, it's a book on the forests of Upper India, which is, northern India or Assam and northeast India. So I don't know which species he was actually referring to. So all of you would be knowing that hornbills belong to this order called the Busoretiformis. And there are two families, the ground hornbills, which are the Bucovidae and the Bucerotodi. So the ground hornbills are only two species, the southern ground hornbill and the northern ground hornbill found in Africa. And whereas the rest of the hornbill species, which are found in Africa and Asia, belong to the Bucerotodi. And to me, hornbills are pretty wacky and brilliant. And they also have some unique features which a lot of other birds don't have. They have fused neck vertebrae. The atlas and axis are fused, which means, it gives them a lot of support for their neck with their heavy bills and casques. Then the casque is also something that all of you would have seen, that many hornbills have casques. But some of them don't have casques, like the Malabar grey hornbill, which is the smallest hornbill that we have in India. And some of them just have some ridges or they have some markings, while some have really, really heavy casques. And the casque of the helmeted hornbill is a solid casque, which actually, because of that, unfortunately, that bird is quite threatened and critically endangered because of, the demand for the casque, which is sort of called ivory. Hornbills also have something called binocular vision, and it means that, they can sort of, they can see to their tip of the bill, which actually results in them being able to do something like precision grasping. So they can, actually grasp the fruit at the tip of their bill and feed it very, meticulously to, their chicks or whatever. And they can handle fruits very finely with their bills. They also have these long eyelashes to die for, which serve as sunshades and windshield wiper kind of things. These are actually not hair, but made out specialized feathers. They also have bilobed kidneys, which apparently most birds don't have. Most birds have 3 lobes in their kidneys, and the kidneys apparently help them to excrete water. Extract a lot of their water requirements from the fruits or animal matter that they eat. So as I said, that hornbills are pretty spectacular, right? But if you look at it carefully, their plumage is usually brown, black, or white, or a combination, right? So they come across very striking, but they're actually not very. Their plumage is not colorful. But what makes them very colorful and bright are of course, their ornamentation on their heads, but also the orbital skin around their eyes. Many of them have very prominent gula pouches, which are very brightly colored. They also have a lot of color on their beaks or casques, some of the species, right? And they have huge casques, some of the species like the beautiful red-knobbed hornbill or the wrinkled hornbill, which is towards the right on my slide. So in India, I guess most of you know there's 9 hornbill species, and 5 of them occur in Northeast India, and other species that I have studied along with my team for many years. That is the first one is the great hornbill, which is distributed in India in 3 disjunct populations, and of course it also occurs in many parts of Southeast Asia. It's the largest hornbill, and then, of course, we have the wreathed hornbill, which is also vulnerable. It's widespread in Southeast Asia. It's also a species that is found in islands. It moves a lot. It makes, kind of sort of long distance movements seasonally. It's a very interesting species that we've studied for a long time. And the male and female are sexually dimorphic. Many of you would have seen it if you had visited the Northeast. Then we have the spectacular rufous-necked hornbill, which is a very handsome bird, my most favorite bird. And this has a more sort of slightly more restricted distribution, and it's found in higher elevation forests. And it is more a mountain hornbill. The bird is almost similar in size to the wreathed hornbill. Then we have the very little known or little studied secretive Austin's or white-throated brown hornbill, which is found in some parts of, mostly in Upper Assam. The good populations are in Upper Assam and in Eastern Arunachal, in Namdapha. There's also some populations in Mizoram and Nagaland and Manipur, but it's a pretty understudied species, and it's at India is at the sort of extreme sort of westernmost limit of its distribution, global distribution. Then we have the oriental pied hornbill, which is the bird that you're all observing. You're observing the female of the species. I just wanted to also say that hornbills, although they are monogamous, they are also extremely unusually, there's a lot of sexual size dimorphism, which can vary among the hornbill species in the world, from only 1% variation to more than 18% variation. And the dimorphism can be either in terms of body weight, body size, or it can also be in terms of bill and casque. People have not really understood why. What are the mechanisms and why is there's so much dimorphism in hornbills. Okay, this next slide is about the oriental pied hornbill distribution in comparison with the Malabar pied hornbill, right? Now, see, the Malabar pied hornbill is found in Sri Lanka, and in the Western Ghats, but it also has this sort of scattered bits of distribution in central India. And it's interesting that there are some zones of overlap, very, very small areas of overlap between the oriental pied and the Malabar pied, which are sort of in Andhra Pradesh, in Orissa, and in, what's the other place? Not in Madhya Pradesh. So Madhya Pradesh, the Malabar pied hornbill is found in Madhya Pradesh. But interestingly, there are a few records of the oriental pied hornbill in Madhya Pradesh, but from a different area completely. but I'm trying to remember what's the other third state where they have a overlap. Oh, Orissa, Jharkhand, and Andhra Pradesh. Yeah. So why I'm bringing this up is because, somehow we've not really looked at these two species and their zones of overlap. And I think that's a question that should be of interest to people to examine and try to understand, because most of the hornbill research has been in India, has been in more of the Western Ghats, some of my other colleagues from NCF as well as others, and then also a bit in Central India and of course, somewhat in Northeast India. So we've neglected some of these populations of hornbills, in different places. And I'm just like, I've taken these eBird maps to show you because I found it fascinating that to look at the Oriental pied and the Malabar pied hornbill distributions from eBird records, of course, for some of these states. I'm sorry, I have not labeled the states, but basically it's showing Jharkhand, Orissa, and Andhra Pradesh. And I put in West Bengal because West Bengal is a place where we studied the Oriental pied and some of the other sympatric hornbills. And of course, the Oriental pied is found in northern Bengal. But interestingly, I didn't know, but there seems to be some records of Oriental pied in this lower part in the corner, and where also you seem to have the Malabar pied hornbill. And I didn't know this. And so I don't know whether there are, Praveen is there. Maybe he can tell me about these eBird records from West Bengal. So, talking about the Oriental pied hornbill, it's a very, very adaptable species. It's a secondary forest species. It's found in villages and, in rural landscapes, semi-urban kind of areas in general. And it's also the most wide-ranging Asian species. In fact, when we, set up the IUCN Hornbill Specialist Group, there was a debate about which Asian hornbill to put in our logo. And I was, of course, wanting something more spectacular. But, Dr. Pillai Punswad, who is like the grandmother of hornbills, she insisted that we should put the Oriental pied hornbill because it's so well known, it's everywhere across, and it's found in cities. And all of you may be aware that the Oriental pied hornbill had once gone extinct in Singapore, but in the last about 20 years, it's made an amazing comeback. And that is sort of documented in multiple papers and some studies and all that. And in fact, it's become a pest species also. In the city, it's been going around catching, visiting people's balconies, and people tend to keep birds as pets in cages. So the Oriental pied hornbill has been going and, murdering some of these pet birds. Also, banging into people's homes and knocking on the glass, getting inside people's houses and defecating there. So, it's become, it's weird to think of hornbills as conflict species, but in some places in Southeast Asia, the Oriental pied is being viewed like that. The other thing about the Oriental pied hornbill is that it is, while I know of it more in forest areas in Arunachal, and of course I've seen it a lot in rural areas in Assam, and in North Bengal and other places, but I haven't yet come across any nesting of the species which is not sort of in better habitat. But there are lots and lots of reports of the Oriental pied in Southeast Asia nesting in all kinds of, in clay jars and pots. It's also a species which is among the most sort of easily takes to artificial nest boxes in many places where they've tried that. So yeah, so to say in short, it's an extremely adaptable species. And this picture is by one of our field team members from North Bengal of, the female and male at a nest, sort of before entering, she's cleaning the nest. So our work I'm not going to talk about all the aspects of our work, but just tell you briefly that we basically focused in the Eastern Himalaya and over the last 20, 30 years. And we've worked in multiple sort of national parks or tiger reserves, as well as outside the protected areas in Arunachal and much later in North Bengal, Assam also to an extent. And, surveys in some of the other northeastern states. And one of the main sites where we've worked over since 95, when I first went there as a student, is the Pake Tiger Reserve, which is an amazing tropical evergreen, semi-evergreen forest. Yeah, it has beautiful forests, and our research over the last 20, 30 years, we've sort of documented about over 123 species in the diet of the hornbill species that occur in Pake. And also, from our studies in some of the other sites. They eat a lot of fleshy fruits, drupaceous fruits, like jamun, looks like jamun, but many of these Lauraceae species, especially species belonging to the Myrtaceae, Myristicaceae, nutmegs, and of course, a lot of figs. So hornbills are, of course, highly frugivorous, but actually, if you were more correct technically, hornbills are omnivores. So while the larger Asian forest hornbills have a large component of fruit in their diet, I of course think that we tend to overestimate the fruit in the diet because that's more easy to record and document, whereas we might be missing a lot of the animal matter or insect matter that they're feeding on, especially in the non-breeding season where it's not really possible to record at a particular site like a nest tree. In the breeding season, you can observe them at a nest tree and you can actually count what they're bringing and of what type. This is a picture of it shows you the diversity in the diet. This is like multiple species of different evergreen forest species seeds which have been regurgitated, and crabs and beetles under a roost site. This was I'm not sure whether I took it at a nest site or a roost site. And through our long-term studies, along with my colleagues, Dr. Rohit Naniwadekar and others, we've basically found that hornbills are very effective dispersers. I cannot go into the details of how and why, but just take my word for it, because this talk is not about all that. The other thing is that, like I told you about the precision grasping of hornbills. You see that hornbill, picking out this is the fruits of a species called Disoxylum gotadhara. It's a Meliaceae, which is again very important family for hornbills. And when it dehisces and ripens, they pick out the aril-covered seed, and they eat the aril. So they regurgitate the seed unharmed. And that fleshy aril is just like in the proximal gut, it's processed. So yeah, so over the long term, we've studied different aspects of hornbills, especially breeding and roosting monitoring, and also tried to estimate populations and densities in some areas. And so it's been a long-term study for many years in Pake, especially looking at the breeding in terms of nest entry timing, as well as occupancy rates. That is, what percentage of nests are active in a given year, looking at nesting success and number of chicks fledged over the years to see whether there's any changes and what's happening in relation to food availability as well as the climate. So all of you know that hornbills are secondary cavity nesters. They don't make their own nests, but they do clean and sort of seemingly repair and excavate a bit, but not they need cavities which are already there. And so that's a very, very limiting factor for them in many places because they need tall, large trees. All of you probably know this. They also have a very long breeding season, and it ranges from, for these larger species, it can be up to 140 days for the wreathed hornbill, which is long, right? From March to August, September, and the female is inside. For the great hornbill, it's 120 days, the average nesting cycle. For the oriental pied, it's about 90 days. So 90 to 100 days. Yeah, so just some pictures of the great hornbill. That's my attempt at taking a picture of the great hornbill's preen gland, which is visible partly. The twig came in the way. This was actually one of our tagged hornbills when we had done a telemetry study. His name was Rifle, by the way. So yeah, anyway. So the hornbill breeding season in Arunachal and even in North Bengal and other places in the north and northeast starts in March. Slight difference for some species. The oriental pied starts a bit later than the other two large species. It usually starts in the first week of April, the oriental pied, and the wreathed and the great start almost together, the great a little earlier than the wreathed in mid-March. And before that, in February, usually there is a lot of courtship behavior seen with males and females sort of in pairs, inspecting nest trees, offering each other fruits. And these are pictures taken by our team members from the field of these species. It's also pretty rare to see hornbill mating, and our team, I have never seen it, unfortunately, but our team, some of them have seen it and documented it. And also, after the mating, which is often on the nest tree itself, soon after the female will enter the cavity, and she has to be really coaxed. Mostly the females hate going into the cavity because they're confined there for a long time. And in this, at least, in Arunachal, Assam, and all these places, everywhere basically, they're nesting in the middle of the major, like sort of humid and hot season. So it's not pleasant. Very often you'll see the hornbills sitting outside with their beaks out and they're perspiring, so it's quite a task to remain inside like that for so long. These are just images of sealed cavities. So when we monitor nests, it's like every year we do this. Our team basically looks for new nests, of course, but we monitor the nests that we've known for so many years. And, we determine whether the nest is active by just simply going regularly and checking whether it's sealed. Yeah. So once it's sealed, we know it's active, and then the nest is monitored throughout the season to understand whether it's still active. Are there disturbances or something? But if it gets abandoned midway, why? Many times we don't know why, but sometimes we do. And okay, so I'm just going to play a video. I hope it plays. This is a video of an oriental pied hornbill female going into its nest in the reserve forest. This was taken by one of my colleagues and team members, Sheetal Dako. She's a Nishi woman from the area. Yeah, so then that's the male trying to, I won't play it for too long. Yeah, I think I'll go forward. And this is the male later bringing clods of mud to give the female. And, it's interesting that, before I started studying hornbills, I thought that, all hornbills bring mud to the female. And the male helps to seal, but the male doesn't usually help at all. It's the female who does the sealing after. But in the larger two species, they don't use mud. At least we've never seen that. They use the female's defecations to seal. So in the beginning, when she enters, there's a lot of ficus seeds and, that kind of like material that they use. And in fact, I think Nikhil had shared pictures of gular fruits from the Lodhi gardens where, and the sealing can be seen when I think the chick has resealed, which was with looked like with fig matter. This is, yeah, so this is, then the long breeding season starts, and the males, of course, are bringing lots of fruit. That's a wreathed hornbill bringing a crab, and yeah. And this is another video from North Bengal. Again, see how nice, you guys are observing it all the time now in Lodhi Gardens, and you're talking about when the chick is refusing, not accepting, all that you're noting down. But here is the male giving right into the beak of the chick. These are just pretty pictures from North Bengal, where we are studying the rufous-necked hornbill especially. This is from Latpanchar, a village which is very famous now for tourism, for birds, bird watchers, but also for hornbills. Their hornbills are almost treated like tigers, the way people like are calling each other whenever they see a hornbill, and people are just rushing to see the hornbills. So it's nice to see so much of love and enthusiasm for the hornbills. And this is a particular nest which is pretty low on the ground. The rufous-necked, because it nests in slightly higher elevations, those elevations do not have the large and tall trees that are there in the lower elevations. And so it looks like nest trees are limiting for them. And even in Bhutan, and even with our studies in North Bengal, we've seen that many rufous-necked hornbill nests are lower down, like very low in height, from the ground. And in fact, at this nest, the chicks kept falling out. And so our team member had to keep repeatedly helping them back into the nest. It was a major operation, and I don't have to, I can't tell you about it now. Okay, but just coming back to Pake, about nest trees, nest trees are super important for hornbills, right? Apart from food, to breed and to, survive and to persist, they need these nest trees. And interestingly, in this region, especially it was very surprising for me to find this over the years, because in the Western Ghats or many other areas, there is not this sole dependence on one or two species for nesting. But in Arunachal, from our observations, and even in North Bengal, not to that extent in North Bengal, 85% of nest trees are on one species, Tetramelis nudiflora. It is a softwood emergent tree and easily has cavities forming because of storm breakage, and also by activities of birds like woodpeckers and barbets. And all of the three hornbill species in Pake in the lowland forest use Tetramelis. So, if you see these images, you can make out, I don't know if you can make out that there's a certain difference in the shape of the three different species. And although it's not universal, generally great hornbill nest cavities tend to be elongated. Wreathed hornbills are more oval. Oriental is round. Of course, it's not always 100% like that, and they do, and paradoxically, you will see that they take over each other's cavities. So, but in general, it's like this. And these are nest cavities that our team has climbed up and measured. So we have these dimensions from about 18 nests, which have been actually measured by climbing in the canopy. This is just one graph quickly to tell you that the hornbill breeding season is pretty long, and it's a little different, not much, between Pake and Buxa, where we have studied these four species. And as you can see, the oriental pied hornbill has a much shorter breeding cycle. Yeah. And I've also indicated the period when they breed. Now to talk about competition. So one of the advantages of doing this long-term longitudinal study across over so many years is that you get to understand and see what's happening at different nest trees. So there was a nest tree that I found when I was, a PhD student in 1998, which was a wreathed hornbill nest. And over till 2003, it remained occupied by wreathed hornbills. Although I don't know whether it was different pairs of wreathed hornbills, but it was a wreathed hornbill nest, because we cannot tell individuals usually, right? But then it was inactive. Then in 2004, in the breeding season, I observed this crazy clash between the great hornbill and the wreathed hornbill pair. And the great hornbills were able to chase away the wreathed hornbills. But, like a dog in the manger, like they didn't even nest themselves. And so for 2 years, that nest was inactive. And finally, they got it and they started nesting for 2 years. Then again, it was taken over by wreathed hornbills, again used by them for a certain period. So just imagine this nest we have now monitored for 28 years and it has changed hands like some 4 times. Similarly, like there's a lot of other examples with other nest trees. And usually the takeover is by the larger body size species, but not always. Sometimes the smaller body species can retake the nest from the larger one. This is another example of a nest which was a wreathed hornbill nest, which we knew since 2004. And as you can see, it's one of the most photographed nests by well-known photographers. It's close to a road and everyone in Pake who visits Pake gets to see it. And this was on but in 2021, it was taken over by a pair of great hornbills. And so now it's being used by a great hornbill. And as you can see, it's weird. One of my colleagues pointed it out. I don't know if you saw that the cavity was this, kind of oval and round earlier, but now it's become a great hornbill nest. It's like elongated. So I found that really interesting that maybe they're, also just like sort of carving it out a bit. Okay, then so there are these tenancy battles at nests all the time, and out of all the nests that we've known, 18% of nests are taken over. And that wreathed hornbill I showed you earlier, the picture of this mating pair. This is a nest in the reserve forest where the habitat is pretty degraded and there are very few large trees left. So here, what happened is a wreathed hornbill female got in. And this story is somewhat similar to the Lodhi Gardens, what you guys are observing. The wreathed hornbill female was inside, and then a great hornbill female, which was a lone great hornbill, started visiting and even fed at the nest a few times. And it was sort of disrupting the nesting, and initially, our nest protector, Taring, who was observing the nest and looks after this nest, he got really confused about what was happening because it was a wreathed hornbill. He had seen it go in. Then he saw this great hornbill female coming and feeding. So other team members also came to watch with him. And then, the female got really disrupted. Unlike in the Oriental pied case, in this case, we only saw feeding by the great hornbill a few times. And the female got irritated and came out. But it was during the initial part of her nesting, right? So she entered it sometime in March, and then, she came out soon after this lone great hornbill female started disrupting. So I'll come to the explanations of why I think this happens and all that, but this was one case which seemed a bit similar to what you are observing. Although in this case, it was different because ultimately the wreathed hornbill female went back into the nest and she successfully nested. And they didn't observe the great hornbill repeatedly coming and trying to feed or disrupt. Similarly, another example of a takeover of a rufous-necked hornbill nest in Buxa, where again, they observed a few times the great hornbill coming to feed. It's coming to feed in a place where the rufous-necked was nesting initially, when the rufous-necked female was inside. And but in this case, there was a pair. It was not a single lone female. It was a male and a female together were there. And now it's become a great hornbill nest since the first 1 or 2 years, after the first 1 or 2 years. So these nests are like sort of premium sites. There's a lot of competition. And I guess you are also observing some other hole nesting birds in the Lodhi gardens, and some, drama happening and chasing of different birds. And you have parakeets there also, mynas. So in these forests in Pake and North Bengal, we have the great slaty woodpecker, which is a rare bird nowadays to see, the red-breasted parakeet. All of these especially compete more with the oriental pied hornbill for nest cavities. We also have species like the oriental hobby or a barred owlet coming in, sort of using these cavities just to roost and sleep in. Dollar birds, even smaller species like sultan tit and nuthatches, chestnut-bellied nuthatch. Then we also have other occupants of these cavities like common palm civet. Then we also have lots of monitor lizards using these cavities. Bees take over, sometimes snakes may be in there, although we've not recorded that. Flying squirrels would also use hornbill nest cavities. Um, and hornbills also have some predators at nests. And in Southeast Asia and in these tropical forests, the main predator that's been recorded by others in Thailand also is the yellow-throated martin and the binturong at nests. Adult hornbills, of course, have very few natural predators apart from human beings. But there is some records of, rufous-bellied hawk eagle killing. We've also seen this, not me, but one of my team members, and it's been reported for rufous-necked hornbill. But anyway, so this was one instance where a great hornbill nest, the female had come out, the chick had not resealed properly, and a pair of yellow-throated martins came and just got the chick. And the pair couldn't do anything, they just watched. This is it's a very exciting video, but I couldn't find it, so I didn't put it. But basically, this was a really sad story for our team members who were monitoring this nest. This was a wreathed hornbill, that same WH4 nest. They, had set up the camera and they were waiting for the chick to come out. And suddenly inside the nest, there was this commotion and they realized there was a yellow-throated martin inside, which will kill the chick. And, they were very sad, our team members, because they had observed that nest for many months, 2-3 months to, welcome the chick. And then it got predated and they were really upset also because the male didn't do anything to chase away the yellow-throated martin. The female at least tried, so it was, but, the next year they successfully nested. Binturongs are known to be nest predators also, but we've never seen this. Binturongs are also highly frugivorous. They eat a lot of figs, and they're good seed dispersers. But in Thailand, Dr. Pillai's team have recorded binturongs as predators. This is about, again, apart from the interspecific and other birds, there's also this unique kind of interactions between species, which is hard to explain. Yeah, I mean, I might be sounding very anthropomorphic, but it's interesting because in this nest, it's number 37 Oriental pied hornbill nest, which we've known since 2014 or something. Every winter, it is occupied by a monitor lizard. But by the time April comes, the monitor lizard vacates the cavity and the oriental pied pair gets to nest in there. Last year, there was actually a lot of doubt whether the monitor lizard would let the oriental pied nest, because it kept coming in and out, and there was some confusion about that. And my team member Ken, he says that उन लोग का आपस में कुछ understanding hai, samjhauta hai, so it's very interesting how and why this kind of thing happens. Then, there's this, I'm just talking about different situations with nesting for hornbills, which is a key thing for them, like I've said. And, now with climate change and a lot of changes with the weather, but apart from that, there are these sudden instances. One of the causes of losing nest trees is storms or tree falls. Although we've seen very few, but over 30 years, we've at least seen, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 trees which have gone because of a tree fall. Just recently on my last visit, we saw a oriental pied hornbill nest tree where the chick and the female had died because the nest tree had fallen. And this is a case, very sad, of a WH38. Again, we have known it since 2009. And we used to observe this nest quite a lot. It was quite close to the camp. And then what happened is it fell. And that year, the weather had been really unusual, hot and raining and all that during the time when they enter. So actually the female had gone in and out multiple times. She didn't want to enter. And in fact, she entered really late. They never enter so late. She entered on 28th April after being indecisive about it for a long time. And she was only there for 10 days. She laid eggs, but the tree fell on 8th May. And then, we found and this was a nest which was active since 2014 and had produced 7 chicks since we had been monitoring it. So, it's sad to lose that for that hornbill pair, they've lost that tree. Then just quickly to tell you that in general, because hornbills are, the oriental pied hornbill is a more adaptable secondary forest species. We have many more nests of the oriental pied hornbill in the reserve forest where we work with the Nishi community to protect nests through the nest adoption program. And yeah, just quickly that encounter rates of oriental pied, which is more common in the reserve forest, is much higher than of the other 2 large species. I'm not talking about the densities. But yeah, I mean, I'm not talking about this, forget it, because I don't want to take too much time about, I've been already talking for a long time. So our currency through this monitoring is really the production of chicks. We want to see nests being successful and chicks coming out. And our team is able to monitor and, check these nests and see. Of course, they don't get to get the pictures or they don't get the exact exit dates always through this monitoring. You can miss it. But these are all pictures taken by the nest protectors of the oriental pied hornbill chicks. Sometimes they produce 2 chicks. And they also, mostly what happens is these chicks, when they come out, they often fall, into the canopy. So you'll see that they're in this dense, like little bit of the, and it's a dangerous time when they are falling sometimes. Yeah. These are chicks of the great hornbill and the wreathed hornbill, again, from from within Pake, as well as some from North Bengal and all that. And this is the fabulous rufous-necked hornbill chicks. And that's a female and the chick inside the nest, their eyes visible. And interestingly, the rufous-necked hornbills that we've monitored usually is producing 2 chicks every time. The other thing that our team has become good at over the last few years is climbing canopy and doing nest repairs. So I don't have I don't want to speak too long, but this is again learned from the Thailand team, who are really experts at doing this, and they've been doing it for years. So we climb these nest trees. The nest trees are really tall, right? But the cavities are at 20, 30 meters often. So it's quite dangerous. It has to be done with a lot of care and training, and sort of skill is required to repair the nest cavities, because nest cavities, many things can happen to it. The cavity floor can sink, the cavity can shrink, or it can widen too much. Hornbills they're big birds, but they don't like very large. It's a misconception to think that, if you see hornbill cavities, they look very small sometimes. You keep thinking, how do those birds get in? But they'd like to get in, they don't want a very large cavity because it takes a lot of energy to seal it and, do all that. So, yeah, so our team has been able to do some repairs of some nests over these years. And this is just an example of a nest where there was no suitable perch. And the hornbill female, when I observed the nest in 2015 or 16, I used to see that the female would keep trying to feed and could fly away. She was not able to give properly and perch properly and feed. So then, with the help of the Thai team, we put a perch for her. And it was quite difficult to do this on this tree, but the Thai team actually helped our team to do this. And then she used it, she used the perch. But just last year when I visited this nest tree, we found that the perch has fallen off. And anyway, this nest has become inactive for the last few years, and we need to check if we are able to climb it again on what the problem is inside the nest. So nest trees, if you can climb, you can figure out what's the problem. Why is it become inactive? But in all cases, you cannot climb because of the structure of the tree. And even if you climb, sometimes you may not be able to do the repairs. This is another nest which was repaired by my colleague Rohit and Sartaj years ago in 2019. It had become inactive for a few years, and simply because the cavity was covered by climbers. Then in the reserve forest, our nest protectors are also, these are some of the nests that they've been climbing up and repairing. We've also this was some years back, we tried this experimental nest boxes. These were with fiberglass. They haven't worked. But now this year, with the support of a very, Mr. Uday Kumar, who's one of our donors, very supportive. He himself has made Indian grey hornbill nest boxes in Bangalore and used them. He helped us to design better nest boxes using plywood this time, and insulated ones. So we've made 12 of them, and we just put up 3 in Latpanchar, where cavities are limiting. And so we'll see what happens. They've not yet, we put them up in February. Last thing, communal roosting in hornbills is a very interesting thing, and I just wanted to talk about it briefly. So hornbills roost in large flocks in certain seasons, especially the wreathed hornbills, and in that genus, the Rhyticeros genus. It's very unusual in the sense that when I first saw it, I was very surprised, but basically they fly away from the forest and come and roost along these linear, the river streams on these open sort of stretches with Bombax, Ceiba, and Albizia trees in the open. In the evenings, they come in and fly. And these areas are also where they deposit a lot of seeds. So in Pake, there are many roost sites, and some roost sites up to 100, 300 birds are seen, especially in the non-breeding season. Just 2 years ago, when there was a palm fruiting in the forest, there was like 300 plus hornbills at this roost site. This is also from Vijayanagar, taken by Kalyan, our friend, way back even in other parts of Arunachal or in North Bengal, we see these large communal roosting flocks of hornbills, especially the wreathed. In Buxa also, our team discovered wreathed hornbill roosting sites inside, where routinely there's more than 100 to 100 birds, 200 birds coming, but on one occasion they saw up to 224 on a single evening. Even the Oriental pied hornbills roost. I'm bringing it back to Oriental, but they roost more in bamboo thickets. And this is probably mentioned by, I think, not probably, it's mentioned by Salim Ali long back. But they also roost in some of these open trees, but the size of their flocks are much smaller. So just to say that it takes a lot of people to study and save hornbills, like you are doing in the Lodhi Gardens. It's not me only. There's a lot of people who work. Right now, I'm just supervising many of them. They're all doing the hard work. This is our nest protectors team. And okay, so now I've done with what I wanted to say about our work, or and about hornbills, some interesting aspects of hornbills. But in terms of the Lodhi Gardens thing, and I hope that we can have a discussion, and I hope there is time for it. I haven't checked what the time is. So obviously the question on everybody's mind is, why is a female oriental pied feeding chicks of another hornbill species? And now it's not doing it just at one nest, but at two nests. And it also tried to predate or break into a third nest. And I believe it inspected a fourth nest. I don't know whether it did anything more there. This is all news I was getting, and conversations with Nikhil, and the updates, of course, that people have been sharing. They are very interestingly written. Um, my question to all of you is, I think now that people are monitoring and recording it, it would be nice to know, is she feeding more? I mean, these are some sub questions to understand, try to figure out why is she doing this, there could be multiple hypotheses. I'll come to what I think could be happening, but is she feeding more than the male Indian greys at these two nests? So that would be only possible to know if you're recording systematically and quantitatively the items and what she's feeding and what the greys are feeding. Because I've seen from some of your notes, you're saying that she's spending more time chasing and defending and guarding. If that's the case, then the reason why she's doing this is different. The other is how much is she feeding in terms of like weight, volume, compared to the gray? And there was an interesting question by somebody on Instagram. They were like wondering, so are the chicks getting double food if both, the male and the female pied is feeding? I don't know, because that would be another thing to compare with, if you observe at a normal gray hornbill nest where nothing like this is happening, and you observe at these two nests and see whether the volume of, but it looks like from some of your descriptions that many times the food's being rejected or thrown or whatever. Yeah, so these were my questions. And it also seemed from the initial sort of descriptions that everybody was very concerned that, oh, she's feeding so much of protein. She's bringing all these dead chicks and giving to the gray. Whereas it looked like the gray was mostly giving leaves and figs and all that. Whereas from studies on the Indian gray by, others who've studied that species well, they eat a lot of animal matter also. Maybe smaller items, maybe not. But I do think that even the gray hornbill brings eggs, bird eggs, and chicks. Maybe Ajay Gadikar, if he's here, can clarify those things about whether the gray hornbill also brings bird chicks and eggs. Then I had, yeah, so these are Nikhil's pictures. I think he sent me some of these pictures. So I just wanted to just share. I mean, all of you would be having many, many pictures of this and what's going on. It would be great to do some write-ups and papers and articles on this, and I'm sure some of you are already compiling that. So I don't know, so you guys have called her Mossy Ma or whatever, Churel, but so is she a usurper? Is she a provider? Is she a disruptor? So I think that my thing is that she is, we've seen some single female birds like this but of course we don't have such detailed and, daily observations. But I feel that from our limited observations of the great hornbill and the wreathed hornbill nest, I think that and because I've told you about this whole interspecific competition for nests and the urge to breed, I believe that the female is defending that area and the nest cavity for future breeding opportunity, even though she doesn't have a partner. And it's whatever, and of course people think that it could be some hormonal thing and the urge to, but why is she feeding then? Okay, so much. Like even the feeding can be a disrupting thing, you see. But the problem is she's doing it so much and she's doing it at two nests. So even I'm very flummoxed and I don't know what could be happening. The other observation in Punjab of this kind of behavior. It ended with the female eating the egg and one chick, apparently, although the paper did not describe that very well. So I was not very convinced about what, was observed there. And the last thing is that, what was I saying? The other interesting thing is that it's a female who's doing all this feeding. So females are usually inside the nest, and that is also very surprising. The female does come out before the chick fledges, but she doesn't participate so much in feeding. It's the male that's usually provisioning, so things seems to have gone awry. Of course, the other question is, what's the origin of this bird? Where did it come from? And Nikhil was telling me what, some of you think, but yeah. So I also hope it gets a partner. I feel sorry for the bird. I hope she can nest herself sometime. Yeah. So, okay, coming to this phenomenon of interspecific provisioning, it is not at all common, of course. Intraspecific help is seen, which is more like, cooperative breeding, which is seen in some birds. In fact, it's seen in some of the brown hornbills especially. And of course, there's brood parasitism, which is certain groups of birds where, where that feeding happens. But this kind of interspecific feeding for these sporadic records of some species doing this sometimes is rare. And it's, the reviews or some of the papers on this, they are skewed to birds in North America and Europe, not well documented for other regions. And there's one review that is this Harmoko, like she or he talks about 186 cases across 40 years of 107 bird species doing this, and discusses the possible reasons. And in her thing, she concludes that in many of these cases, it was because there were loud calls of the way she described it was very proximate kind of reasons were given as to why this happens. It was not very convincing, but I haven't read much of the literature on this, so I don't know. Yeah. Then with regard to what's going on at Lodhi Gardens, I mean, this is just from the papers I know of grey hornbills, Raju Kasambe's work and Ajay Gadikar and others. I believe that the nesting cycle of grey hornbill is around 85 to 95 days. Maybe the mean is around 90 days. Female is in the nest, for that, it's kind of range. And if this nest was initiated around 20th, 25th March or whatever, I would expect that the chick will be coming out very soon, the lone chick that's remaining. And now that the females come out also. And yeah, and Nikhil just sent me these pictures of the females of the grey hornbills, which you can identify, it seems. Okay, now with the grey hornbills, I had questions, which I was asking Nikhil multiple times, is that because people kept mentioning helpers. Now, helpers have never been recorded for Indian grey hornbills in the other studies. So, of course, some of the descriptions say that the helpers were not really helping. They were just like hanging around. But there were also some observations which suggested that they were defending the nest, like chasing away other birds. They were not successful with the oriental pied, but they were doing that with other birds. And there was one or two observations of them, one feeding at the nest. So it would be great to have more detailed observations and systematic observations of what these other individuals are doing. And I know it's very hard to follow them or even figure out identities. But also the pictures that Nikhil sent me of the helper at the N1 nest. Like to me, it looks like almost a full-grown female. So I don't know, is it a subadult female? It's a female, yeah. And yeah, I think there were some questions about how many chicks were there in this nest, because initially people thought there were two, then then there was one, and then a dead one was thrown out. Yeah, so it's interesting to keep watching and trying to figure out what's happening. And these are just some of the questions that are for you guys to try and see if you can answer or follow. And there seems to be a lot of other characters around. It'll be interesting to record also that part of it, what's happening with these other birds that are coming to the nests. And some of them could also be competing for cavities, whereas others may be coming to grab the, animal matter food. So yeah, I mean, the big question is how will this end? And yeah, I'm done, and would be great to have questions.
So, Kavi, will you just ask a few questions and then we'll ask Ajay to come live, and Pankaj and Sheila can also come live, where they've been watching the nest every single day.
Yeah, thank you, Prajita, for that talk. I mean, you really helped us understand the world of hornbills. We've had a lot of questions coming in through the talk, so we're going to take
Okay.
maybe 4 or 5 of the most interesting ones.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
let
me just
consider this.
stop sharing. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Let me start off. There's a question from Vijay, who's asking that being inside the nest for 90 days or longer, does it impact the muscles or flying ability of the female bird inside?
Very good question. I don't think so, because I mean, of course, she might be sore and whatever, because they fly out. They out of the nest. We've observed them coming out of the nest and going in. But I think after she comes out of the nest for a while, she's not very active in helping the female with feeding or doing anything.
Mhm.
But these kind of things are hard to study when you do just observational work. So in India, we are often reduced to doing more observational work, unlike, say, in South Africa, where they do a lot more intensive sort of studies which are invasive, which is where they catch birds. They look at much more detailed aspects of the physiology and um, of these birds. So they understand much better. Some of these things are better known from captive observations rather than from wild birds. Yeah.
Got it. Couple of other questions regarding the female hornbill when it's incubating. So the first one's from Arun, who's asking, does the female shed feathers while incubating? And then a fun question from Praveen's son, who's asking, won't the female hornbill be very bored inside the nest for so many days?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, she's incredible patience, because when we sit and observe those nests for like 5, 6 hours, 7 hours, you can imagine how boring it can be when there's nothing happening for hours. Yeah, I mean, the female, I mean, I don't know how she does it, staying inside for so long. She's, of course, sort of busy inside cleaning. Um, yeah, she's offering food to the chick or eating herself. That's how she passes her time. Many times, she'll be in the hot summer months, you'll see her beak out and open. So they respire, through
Yeah.
that lower whatever. Yeah. The first question was what? Sorry, I was more.
Does the female shed feathers while incubating?
So it's believed that they do a full molt and partial molt. Okay. But I don't know. I mean, I would love to test this, but we can only do it if we can put cameras inside our nests. Extremely hard to do in these forests, putting cameras in the nests, and I won't go into why, but unless you put cameras, you don't really know whether there is partial molt or full molt. It is believed, based on other studies, observations, as well as from zoos, whatever. But I believe that in Arunachal, I have seen some nests which were abandoned for different reasons, where the chick may have died inside, but I've seen the female come out and fly away, right? And I think my other team members have also seen such things. So I am not sure. I don't know whether, because in a place like Arunachal, hornbills were really threatened by hunting over a long time, and maybe they don't. One of the common ways that hornbills get hunted is at the nest in many areas across their distribution. Although in Arunachal, many tribes also have bans on hunting the birds during the breeding season. I'm sorry, I'm giving a convoluted answer, but what I'm trying to say is that basically I believe that they don't fully molt, because sometimes the male can get hunted during the breeding season, and then the female would be stuck. The belief is that the female will die inside with the chick, right? But she doesn't. She comes out,
Got it.
at least in few
So,
cases, right? So I would love to test this by putting cameras inside to see whether they're actually molting.
yeah, I
I
think
think
a
maybe
follow-up
partial
that
molt.
just came, a
Yeah.
follow-up to that came that in the man-made nests, potentially there can be spaces made to add cameras and observe this. So, I mean, that's
Yes,
something for the future
people are
for
doing
sure.
that. Yeah, yeah. But hornbills are
Got it.
extremely nasty also. They throw away, they peck at anything that is there. When we put eye buttons inside our nest in the natural cavities, even though they're really tiny, these eye buttons for temperature and rainfall, a few months later, when the team climbed to get those eye buttons, which are really expensive, couldn't find them. They had pecked them and thrown them away. So, yeah.
Got it. Another question from Aarti. Do the hornbills keep coming back to the same nesting cavity every year for breeding, or do they change their nesting cavities?
So you saw that some of the nests that we've followed have been for 28 years. So again, the answer is a bit qualified. Basically, if it's the same species, yes, it could be the same pair, but I cannot say 100% it's the same pair. You see, because only in some pairs we can actually identify the individual. For example, if there was a wreathed hornbill pair where the wreathed hornbill had some kind of mark on the casque or some deformity, then you could tell if it's the same individual coming year after year. But because within a species, we cannot always distinguish individuals' pairs, right? So there, we can't say whether it's the same pair coming and nesting. But of course, it's the same, like some nests we know have been great hornbill nests for. They're using year after year, as long as the cavity is fine, right? Most of these nests that we know, some of them 25, 28 years, 20 years. But like I said, that some nests get taken over by other species, right? So a wreathed hornbill nest could get taken over by a great hornbill nest.
Yep. Another question from Sudhir Vyas is that if the nest tree falls, and I think you showed one example when the nest tree had fallen, while the female inside is in molt, can it survive? Like, have you had any observations on that?
No, I mean, the couple of cases, like I mentioned, that female you saw, the dead female, no? It's a large tree, and when it falls, she just, she just died. Unless they have some warning beforehand and, she can come out of the cavity before the tree fully falls. But, these storms often happen in the middle of the night when the tree falls and they just, have died. The few cases that we know, there was one case in the reserve forest where the nest tree fell and the chick and the chick was still inside. The female had come out earlier. The chick survived because I think of the angle in which the nest tree fell, and the male was still feeding the chick with the fallen, tree. Yeah.
Got it. Another interesting question from Arnav is he's saying he's wondering if it's relevant to what is happening currently in central Delhi. about every tree for a 5 kilometer radius was planted for aesthetic reasons. So feed would be affected, and the lineage of these grey hornbills that are staying in Lodhi for a few generations may also be affected. So do you think the change in the trees that are being planted is having an effect on the behavior of the grey hornbills
In Delhi,
in Delhi, in central Delhi?
I don't know what species are being planted and what's happening there really. I haven't visited Delhi for a while. So, but the grey hornbill, Ajay can probably answer better. But I was just reading a paper before this talk. There was a study in Aligarh, a Muslim university, where they found the grey hornbill
Mhm.
using Delonix regia, using eucalyptus, and many other, non-native species also. I hate to say it, but I think maybe it's probably among the most um, resilient, adaptable species, the grey hornbill. Yeah,
Okay.
so it can use a whole range of.
Got it. We can take the last couple of questions. So one is from Anita, who's asking, does the female come out at night unobserved? Has that ever been noticed, or is it always inside for that incubation period?
That's an interesting question. No, but we would never know that. And of course, unless,
Unless we have cameras
cameras,
or traps,
cameras
yeah.
outside will not even get the night stuff, no, usually in the dark. So,
Yeah.
hmm.
And the last one, let's take, is from Lucky, who's asking, are artificial nest boxes becoming a long-term solution, or should they only be a temporary response while natural nesting trees are restored?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that they shouldn't be a long-term solution, but natural trees, it requires the habitats to be protected much better, the threats to be stopped, which unfortunately often doesn't happen in many areas. But the caveat with artificial nest boxes have been tried much more outside India. It's used a lot in Africa, South Africa especially, and in Southeast Asia. It's only been successful to a very small extent for some species. In South Africa, it works for many species, but not in Asia with the forest hornbills. And the other thing is that it will, if you put artificial nest boxes, I think in very good forest or reasonably good forest, they usually don't take it, only when it's really degraded, right? So I wouldn't say that it's a good idea to do nest boxes randomly just for the sake of it. But depending on the context and the area where the habitat's really degraded and hornbills are having difficulty finding and getting nests, it might be one of the sort of temporary things that you try, like we are doing in Lathpanchar.
Got it. Great. I think that's it for the questions. Nick, over to you. I think we have
So yeah,
Ajay
so
also. Yeah.
we just get Ajay online, and if Prachita has any questions to ask, Pankaj and Shaila can come online. They've been there every single day at the nest. And I have one question for you, Prajita.
Yeah.
When the chicks come out of 1, 2, 3, 4 nests, who will they follow? Where will they go? Grey ki white?
That's a lovely question. Yeah, this is somebody asked this question in that list you sent. Is the hornbill, I didn't answer that, I think, during my talk, it didn't come up. How are the chicks feeling? Like, are they traumatized kind of thing because of what's happening? So I really wonder, because this is very unusual, no? For it to go on for so long. And even the male, the way they are, well, somebody should catch them and look at their stress hormones. I don't know what's happening really. But yeah, it'd be interesting to observe. I think it'll follow the grey hornbill only. I
You
don't
think
think
so?
it'll follow your Mosima.
She may chase away the parents and she may just take them over and say, okay, fine, we are all pied now.
Or she might attack the chick. That'll be horrible if she does
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Okay. If you have any questions for our
I
team, you
had
can host
questions
me.
which I'd
Is
put in
Ajay
my
online?
slides.
Ajay?
But
So as to you had asked about who is feeding more. So initially when the female was also inside, there was a lot of feeding activity. Now of late, at least I've been observing the first nest, not the second one, which the pied has taken over as well. But initially there was a lot of feeding activity. The pied was also coming, and the gray male was also coming. The pied would get different food. She would get larger figs, larger berries, and the protein, the big protein. Then, and the gray would get smaller berries, which were easier to feed, which were kind of more readily accepted also, and also insects. We did observe it bringing insects and caterpillars and, crickets and
Okay.
paper wasps and things like that.
But
So
no birds or bird eggs.
no birds, no bird eggs. Those have all been
No
confined to.
reptiles also.
No reptiles, no lizards. I've actually only been observing in the morning, so I don't know what happens the rest of the day. But so far, nobody has ever reported that they've seen a lizard or anything else being fed. But I mean, having observed it for some time, I think they were taking a lot more food from the gray, and also accepting a lot more readily from the gray. And even today, the chick is a lot more vociferous and a lot more receptive when the father comes.
Yeah. The other thing that struck me is that, the Greys are extremely, how will I say, patient in these nests. Because the way you guys described the herd chasing them and not letting them, like in many, like I told you in that other case, the female had abandoned the nest. She got so, she came out, right? And the male. So here, they are like so hung up on continuing.
The female was taking food from the pied.
Yeah.
She was accepting food from the pied. And I think when the pied adopted the second nest, maybe they got a little bit of respite, when she was there. Except the only thing that the greys were doing, which was, according to us, quite foolish, was that they were calling when they flew in to feed. So we would alert her, and then she would come and chase them off. Of late, the male has been coming quietly. So maybe he's learned. I don't know. And Pankaj, do you have anything to add to
I have
that?
one question from Tara. Pankaj, one question from Tara, then it's to you. She wants to know what potential interactions can we anticipate between the female grey hornbill and the pied once the females are out.
The females are out already, no?
Yeah.
Both of
Yeah,
them.
they are out.
Yeah. And but you specifically with the female, but they're out already, no? So you've not seen any direct interaction, no, between them?
No, we haven't yet.
No, I think they're just generally the size is too big.
Yeah. No, and once they're out of the nest, no, Tara, I don't think they'll be like, I've also seen in Thailand once, almost towards the end of the nesting season, there was, I'm forgetting which species now, it was 30 years ago, wreathed hornbill was nesting, and another pair of wreathed, even though it was almost the end of the season, was trying to disrupt the nesting. So they do it when, when there's that window for the nesting, but otherwise, if they meet outside of the nest, I don't know whether there's going to be any interaction, which will be, unless it's to do with the chick. This bird is just totally, yeah. But I do believe that that's what, if you quantify it, maybe we'll have some answers. I don't know. I believe that she's like, wants to breed, and she's seeing this nests as, she's defending these areas and these trees for a future breeding opportunity. But yeah, I'm not 100%, I can't say, because of the extent to which she's feeding also. And, yeah. Okay, we should let Ajay speak because he's
Pankaj and Ajay, two of them, yeah.
Yeah, he's the grey hornbill expert.
So just one addition to this, what we have observed, the pied hornbill is getting food, she's rationing. So she would put some amount of things to the next one and take it rest to the next two. So it will not go back and feed again and bring the feed in a new figs. She will just ration something in nest one, and he says, okay, it's enough, and she will go to the next two. Like for
Wow.
today, egg also. She offered the egg to nest one, and when the nest one refused, she took the egg to nest two.
So amazing.
So
Yeah.
she is rationing the food, what is she is getting for them. I
Maybe
don't know
very
how too
possible.
logical.
I think she's favoring nest too. I'm very
Now
That's what
she
you
is.
guys have been describing.
Yeah.
Now
And,
she is very clearly
yeah.
favoring
One
nest
thing I
two.
just wanted to add, which I didn't mention during my talk, we don't, as biologists, ecologists, we tend to always look for very adaptive explanations for any behavior. But as all of you who have pets, whether it's birds, cats, dogs, animals have personalities, individual personalities, you know, and we don't understand a lot about all this, what the different birds behave differently, individuals, yeah. People who study behavior may have many more sort of perspectives on this. um, so it's opened up a lot of questions. By the way, I asked some of my colleagues in outside the country about this. They haven't shared the details, but they have seen, these are people in the zoos, they have seen in a captive condition, this kind of interspecific feeding between, I think red-billed and yellow-billed hornbills, or, another species in Africa. African species in zoos in Europe, they have seen this. Yeah, but I don't know the details of that situation.
We'll go over to Ajay now. Ajay, you're muted. Yeah. Hi,
Thank
Ajay.
you, Nikhil. Yeah. Hi, everybody. So it was nice listening to Aparajita. So I had a little bit different view from Aparajita regarding what is happening at the Lodhi garden. What my senses says is, it's like first this pied, I think, is a vagrant. It's not find. It's first of all, we don't know from where it come. So I think it's in the genes. When their breeding season comes, that this is the time for breeding, and they accordingly, uh, the things derive from inside them, and the maternal instinct of the female. She might not have got the pair, so but the calls, the chicks begging, and that all make her to feed. That instinct, the bird, obviously that is in the genes there. So it comes and try to feed. Obviously, gray hornbill female, or they don't like. They find it an intruder. So maybe, but in the same family, they might be taking some of the times the food. But more of what I make out of it is the female pied hornbill, due to and being a female, more of her maternal instinct, she is trying, and being in the breeding season, trying to feed, as she has not got a pair, and she herself has not have any nest there. So that might be a case, which can be, obviously, it's my thought only. And obviously, yes, more things to unfold. Going onwards, how the chicks emerges and how then things happen. 1 or 2, 3 days will be important when the chick fledges. But yes, that is all what I wanted to add from my side.
Sir, can I ask you one question?
Yeah.
Now, the park is a very small park. We have around 10 to 15 nests.
Yeah.
And there would be a grey hornbill nest, which is just 50 meters or 40 meters from these two nests.
Yeah.
But the pied is not going there.
Uh-huh.
So if the maternal instinct happens, the chicks begging happens, it's happening all over.
Yeah.
But she has chosen certain nests which she wants to visit. So that doesn't really feel right for a maternal instinct only kind of a situation.
No, you have shown it. She's going to 4 nests, no? 3, 4 nests.
So we have seen it feeding into, we saw it near the other two, but there are much closer nests which are around, where she has not been seen.
I also observe 8, 9 nests which are of grey hornbills, which are very nearby. So, yes, the instinct, but she may be preferring some nest. Obviously, I don't have the right why she's not going to. But as you come to know that after one nest there is second, that is third, that is fourth. If you people observe more, you might get something more. You people only can tell me what could be a probable this thing. But yes, if that instincts are there, it might be like what Aparajita said, some personality thing, or the other way around, it could be like there are time intervals between two nests. One has got occupied a bit early, another maybe 15 days back. So the chicks there may be calling more from inside, and so she's got interested into it, that. And this might be a 7 days 15 days later nest that has occupied later, so that quite be one thing. So I mean, I'm not a biologist or ecologist, so I'm out of a citizen scientist, which I can, so seriously cannot comment. But yes, what I understand, I told my
So
audience.
another question I have.
Yeah,
So
please.
once the female is outside the nest,
Yeah.
how long does it take? How many days gap she comes back in the nest to feed? Because the female of N1, our main primary nest, she is usually not seen, whereas other nests we are seeing females along with males. So is there a time gap in between? How much would that be?
Yeah, I've seen. I mean, it's only a matter of 2 3 days. I think the female remains very in the vicinity only. Maybe on the same tree, maybe nearby trees for first 1 2 days, and very soon she comes to feed. I mean, she may not be bringing much of the matter, only a single piece or two piece, but she's in the vicinity. And yes, for the initial 2 3 days she is weak, but she comes very frequently. Whenever the male comes to the nest, she also accompany with him to the nest site.
Uh,
The male has to
Unfortunately,
go.
it's not happening. It's been 7 days. Now 9 days now. Since the
Okay.
female is out, now she is
Uh-huh.
not back.
What I'll tell you, see, we people observe it for say morning 2 3 hours, maybe evening two
Okay.
hours, for the daytime. So what I seen through that camera recording which I put for the whole entire breeding period, you see that during the I mean after 2 3 days 4 days she'll come, and even in the period when we are not observing she might be coming,
Okay.
because she is there, or we might miss it. So there's a long period in the daytime, so might be coming or not, can't say very sure for
Can't
sure
say.
for that. But generally she's around, she comes, maybe feeding a single, coming and just feeding, or just watching them inside and just going back, may not be even feeding, but yes, she do come to the nest, that I have seen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Shella, any questions?
It was just about in the beginning when we observed the nest, when the female was inside. Each time the male came to feed, there were two others coming with it. Now, at that time, we were just, I think so taken up with the pied that we didn't really bother to look at the accompanying greys so well. And they weren't really doing anything. They weren't even scaring other species. They weren't any help with the pied at all. And they weren't participating in any feeding. So, what was the purpose of that? And after a while, that just stopped. Now the male is usually coming alone and sometimes accompanied by what looks like the female.
So
But
what I observed through my 15 years of observing groundness, that there are other males and females in the vicinity in that area, because again in Indore where I do my study, there is a small area, residence area, where lot of fig trees and old trees are there. So there are plenty of hornbills there. So they do come maybe through the initial periods for due to the struggle for nest to finding a suitable nest. If another pair is there, another pair visit when already a nest is occupied. They may come to see if it's occupied or not. So actually, I've seen other hornbills also coming nearby and even peeping inside the nest. But really, if you tell me the word helpers, like they're coming and like Musima, like a cha-cha type of thing, the feeding. I've not seen that. I mean, obviously not
I
tagged
wanted to.
anywhere, so but yes, not seen that. Yeah, yeah,
So
brother.
I wanted to ask Shaila that, because in some of the notes and updates all of you sent, because I think although you're saying that they were not helping, mostly they're not helping, but some observations or some of the write-ups indicated that they chased away the parakeets or mynas at the nest. And then I think Nikhil, once time he has a picture or something of the uh, it coming and feeding. And I just wanted to say that with observations of the really cooperative breeding hornbills, which I have helpers at the nest, like brown hornbills, which we've studied. Brown hornbills, what happens is the adult male has subadults or juveniles, maybe of the previous year, who come. And it can range from 0 helpers at some nests to 5, 6 helpers. Often there'll be 2, 3 helpers, and they may not always, they don't do much in terms of feeding. But what they do is they'll be guarding the nest. Like they'll be hanging around and calling at the nest, um, sort of defending the nest, watching out for intruders, that kind of behavior. And yes, grey hornbill, of course, nobody has ever recorded any helpers. But Ajay, I just wanted to tell you that Dr. Alan Kemp, in his book, he had speculated long back, before people had done detailed studies of this genus, that Oceceros genus may, on based on some criteria tendency, like he felt that maybe it is a group of the genera might show some cooperative breeding behavior. I'm not completely certain, I have to look it up, but Sri Lankan grey hornbill, I think there is some report or something that they have observed. Also, it need not be present in the species all across in all places, all areas across the range. It could be facultative, context specific, more in areas where there is fewer, in this kind of situation where there is maybe competition. But it could be like what you are also saying. I think we need more detailed observations. And yeah, and also it would be great, in these situations, it would be great to capture the hornbills and mark them,
Then only
and
we'll be
Yeah.
able
tag
to
them in
confirm.
some way. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why grey hornbills are such an amazing study species, And although there have been so many, now there's more studies of this species in multiple areas. But I really think, like, some of us who've gone and studied species in faraway places, I would want to actually study the grey hornbill. It's so fascinating, so interesting, and we can do so much more with it
Yeah.
because it's,
So
yeah,
just a follow-up question.
yeah.
So how long does it take for grey hornbill to mature and start their own breeding cycle? Any broad idea how many years are we looking at?
3-4 years, very vague.
Three,
I mean,
4 years.
4 years.
That's
Because
true for most hornbills.
because we recently had a almost adult male also coming to the nest, which is still a sub-adult, but yet not fully developed, which Sheila, I think day before we saw.
Yeah.
So we were just trying to wonder how many years of prodigies are there which are going to be, might be around.
Ajay, I also had a question.
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
it's very hard to tell the juveniles' genders for hornbills, right? Many hornbills. I wanted to ask in the grey hornbill, at what stage, at the very juvenile stage, you can't say, but once do you only start making out when the casks start developing, or are there features of the orbital skin or some other eye color or something that tells you whether it's a female or a male when they're small and when they're young, I'm saying.
Yeah, when they just fledge out of the nest, actually, I just documented today at one of the nest, the chick just fledged.
Hmm.
So, I mean, it was almost, it was a big, I mean, only that cast thing I could make out. Otherwise, it was almost like a female. I mean, the So it might be a female chick. What I want to say is your question that to answer your question, yes, there are multiple things which makes which is used to ascertain that it's a juvenile or a female bird. Sorry, I actually I myself got stuck. Can you repeat the question?
No, yeah, it's okay.
Okay.
I was asking whether, like, when for some of the hornbill species, like for most of the hornbill species, they don't develop a casque till after a couple of years, right? A few years or even 3, 4 years. So, how do you, in the gray hornbill, how do you tell when it's, 1 year old, or can you tell the gender after 1 year or 2 years?
I don't
Based
think.
on other characteristics.
I think generally the males
Only
and
the
females
caste.
are
Only once the caste
looking
develops,
at
you
the
can tell.
ask and the color of the what you call eye or the people, we make out the male and female. But yes, the juveniles and the are a little bit different, are difficult. I mean, but yes, if we have got good photographs just by our just seeing all over the years, we can make out mostly. But yes, I'm not very good at that distinction at that point of time. I mean, when they are just emerging.
Not emerging, it's hard. You can't tell actually
Yeah.
for most. And interestingly, for some of the hornbills, like wreathed hornbill, I don't know if you all know this, that the chicks resemble the male.
Oh,
All chicks, juveniles, up to 1 year, they look exactly like the male. After 1 year, it's bizarre, the color starts changing. If it's a female, then the gula pouch will become blue and the body will become black. So we had a captive hornbill in Pake, we used to call it Raja because we thought it's a male. After 3 years, it became a female.
Rani.
Yeah, Rani. So yeah, so these Rhyticeros genus, and some of they have this some of these species, and in fact, it's the opposite. Hornbills are really crazy. I mean, interesting. So the Ceratogymna, which is another African species, there it's the opposite. The juveniles and chicks resemble the female
Females.
instead of the male. And now why that is a bigger question to understand. But yeah.
actually, we don't observe more of them during the non-breeding season. It's mostly when the breeding season we actually go into
Yeah.
detail. Rest of the time, I mean,
So in India, that's a big problem. Like we
yeah,
really don't know much about the behavior, especially what happens post fledging.
yeah,
Like especially with this period, no, with this juvenile survival.
yeah,
How long are they with the parents? What do
yes,
they do? How do they form pairs and these
yeah,
bonds? A lot of this stuff we don't know
yes,
for
true.
our Asian species because they are harder to study because they're forest species and you'd need to catch them, tag them, mark individuals.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
yeah. Mm.
I think that was very fascinating.
I'm
And I
sorry,
thank
it's
all of
already
you.
9 almost. Sorry.
That's
Yeah.
fine. Yeah, that's fine. And thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge, all your insights, and all your passion for Hornbill with us. So we have some questions, and we still have more questions, which I guess it'll be answered with more observations.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know whether it was satisfying to people who wanted answers about the what's happening in Lodhi Gardens, but
So we will come back to you in 2 months with some more answers and some more questions.
Some more questions.
2 months
Yeah,
later, I think they'll come out very soon, no?
yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Sure.
Okay, thank you so much
Thank-
for
Thank
calling.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
Thank you.
it's a pleasure. Yeah. Yeah. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.